everyone, and welcome to the Facebook Live. We are live, as you can hear in the background, we are live from the People Matters Total Rewards and Wellness Conclave. It's a pleasure to welcome you all for the Facebook Live. And we have with us David Litteken, who is the BP Asia Pacific at BI Worldwide. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Esther. Glad to be here with you today in Mumbai.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and you guys can't see what we can see, but the room is buzzing, the room is full of people, and I'm very excited that you're here. You're giving us time to discuss some few important areas that we wanted to ask David on how has the rewards landscape really evolved, and what are the few learnings that we can have from you and we can take and implement. So I'm going to start with the first question. David, you have been in the rewards performance improvement industry for over 28 years. When you look back, what are some of the inflection points that you will, the way that organizations really looked at performance improvement really changed? When are those inflection points and what can we learn from those?
Sure. I think there's a couple points I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
I think first is really thinking about what is recognition.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And why should we do it?
Yeah.
So I think I've seen this ebb and flow over the years. Is recognition about thank you?
Yeah.
Is it about just giving thanks? Is it performance-based? I'm seeing a big trend actually back toward performance-based recognition.
Yeah.
So are we setting proper targets and really rewarding people with even larger types of recognition?
Yeah.
And it's looking at that balance between, making sure people feel recognized for meaningful work every day, plus giving people some pretty specific targets, and then really rewarding them with some memorable, travel experiences that they'll have with them forever. So I think that the one big trend is just the ebb and flow of what kind of recognition should we offer, and should it be business oriented versus creating a really happy work environment. The second trend that I've seen is, companies really wanting, as companies have grown and become more connected globally, how do we make sure our recognition program isn't just about one particular country? How are we connecting people together? And with technology, we're able to do that. I remember I launched my very first global recognition program back in 1996. That was before there was really email.
Yep.
We were using Lotus Notes. We didn't have electronic catalogs. We were trying to develop and I look back from 1996, my first trip to Bangkok, to Singapore, to China to develop this program, to how we're able to do it today. Remarkable, the technology improvement. So I think technology is another, it's just allowed us to be more personal again and across the globe.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you some few questions on that as
Sure.
well. But before I do that, you talked about what's the purpose of the recognition? Is it about business performance, or is it about culture building, or the softer aspect?
Right.
What do you feel? Is it very contextual to the business, or is there any trend that you say, well, it is trending to be more business oriented, or what's the balance between how many recognition programs are mostly for business alignment vis-a-vis really creating that stickiness or that environment? What's the right mix?
Yeah. I think I can only answer this question from a very personal perspective.
Yeah.
There's two recognition moments in my life that stand out.
Yeah.
The first one was literally from someone sending me a card.
Yeah.
And the second one was from someone rewarding me with an amazing trip. The first one was I was working really hard and really long hours.
Yeah.
And my boss at the time sent me a card, and she compared me to Theodore Roosevelt charging San Juan Hill. Theodore Roosevelt he's my idol. She did not know that. He was a president who suffered from illnesses as a child and went on to become a boxer, a rough rider, and president. So for her to compare me to my idol, unbeknownst to her, amazing. I still have that card.
Yeah.
And that card was given to me almost 25, 26 years ago.
Wow.
The second was I was up for a big award, right?
Yeah.
Based on achieving big goals.
Yeah.
I had achieved my goals. I got moved to a new area to help improve a part of the organization that wasn't performing.
Yeah.
And my new goals were my goals for the year.
Yeah.
So I didn't earn the big trip. And the boss at the time, our current CEO, said, "This isn't right. He deserves to go on the trip." So our owner called me into his office and said, I'm going to do what we learned from Leo today, discretionary
Yeah.
effort. He said, you
Yeah.
earned that trip.
Yeah.
You and your wife are going to Ireland, a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's really important to have a balance of those humanistic,
Yeah. Yeah.
this simple note
Yeah.
that's really well done and well timed,
Yeah.
all the way up to providing, a trip that an award that I could never get on my own.
Yeah.
I think companies need to do both,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to do.
So you mentioned something very interesting, and for the benefit of our audience who didn't listen to Leo's session, and you talk about the power of discretion for that leader, and how we can enable leaders to feel empowered to go outside of the guidelines if needed, to really create that moment of truth that you spoke
Yeah.
about. Every day, an achievement day,
Right.
and you experience that. So what's the learning on how can we encourage more leaders to do that, especially because you're addressing the HR community
I mean,
here.
when Leo mentioned that today, I thought it was right on. I work with so many HR leaders that I understand they have to be compliant. But, we're training leaders, executives, directors. We need to trust them. We need to provide them with, so I think the key is for us, we have programs where we provide them managers with discretionary budgets,
Yep.
where we say to a leader, we have a calculator, you can go in and look at scope,
Yep.
impact,
Yep.
a few different characteristics, and it will give you guidance on what kind of reward of cash value or a non-cash reward
Yep.
that you can give. So I think there's a way to provide managers and leaders with discretion
Yep.
within boundaries.
Yeah.
But give them the power to look at what is the reward commensurate with the
Yeah.
behavior that's
Yeah.
been exhibited. So I thought Leo's message was right on, and our job is to find ways to put some rules in place,
Yeah.
but give them some bandwidth to
Yeah.
move and
Yeah.
trust them.
Yeah, and I think in turn it's already a rewarding process because as a leader I feel trusted.
Right.
Right?
You see, people wanting to put one level, two levels. I look at clients when you do 3 levels of approval.
Yeah.
It's
Why?
too much. It's too much.
Why?
It's too much.
So let go.
Let go.
Let
Trust.
go. Let go. So you spoke about the power of technology to be able to personalize and segment experiences, which probably in your initial years of your career you really couldn't. But
Right.
today you can. Can you tell us more about how is technology helping companies personalize and reach out to people in a very, very unique and segmented way?
Sure. I look at if you have a recognition platform online.
Yeah.
As much information as HR can provide
Yeah.
in the system, so we can push up, birthday cards automatically to wish people a happy birthday, a happy work anniversary.
Yeah.
In some countries, the culture of military is revered. For example, in Singapore, everyone has to put in service. Israel, other countries, the
Yeah.
U.S. is very important. So if a company can let us know who their veterans are, or who their current military members are, on those days that are important to military, we can push out a card to them, thanking them for the service to their country.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful, and
Wonderful.
actually quite simple to do.
Yeah.
So it's really looking at how do we harness the information we have,
Yeah.
and then how do we put it into an audience segmentation,
Yeah.
and give people the recognition they deserve.
Yeah.
Not to mention even the ways you can use that when providing rewards to people. What are the
Yeah.
most meaningful kind of awards to give to the people once they've achieved?
Wonderful. So what I'm hearing you say is that technology is an enable to deliver those experiences, but still the thought and the care and the creativity and the love can't be outsourced to technology.
No, I mean technology is a tool that needs to be
Yeah.
harnessed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people become just reliant on the technology and they don't do the diligence to
And
keep
the
up
thought.
with it.
Yeah.
But technology is just a tool, and it's a
Yeah.
great tool. But it's
Yeah.
how do we really harness it and use it to its full benefit?
Yeah.
And by using it, we can make the recognition personal.
Yeah.
I mean, I still write thank you notes. I still send handwritten notes. I still send birthday cards, holiday cards. I
Yeah.
think that is still meaningful.
Yeah.
But I also send those same notes electronically.
Yeah.
So you look at your
Yeah.
audience and see how can you get at them both. How do you be personal and maybe a traditional way and using technology
Yeah.
both?
So what are the nuances you've seen of national cultures? And we had the privilege that you presented the Pizza Hut case study. And how do you make sure that those programs which are global in nature are relevant for the local And if you can take the example of how Pizza Hut did it and how you did it with Pizza Hut, that will be very meaningful.
Sure. Well, I mean, I've had the great privilege of living in several countries and working with my offices all over the world. And so from that, the main thing I realize is that for the most part, we are actually more alike than different.
Yeah.
We all have hearts. We all have heads. We all want to do meaningful work. We all want to provide for our future. But the cultural part is still so very important.
Yeah.
Because it's those nuances that make life interesting and make us unique. So, for example, when we're developing programs in perhaps more in northern Asian countries where collectivism, team is still a bit more important than individual, we're looking at having team awards versus individual awards so much. We're looking at setting goals that if a whole company achieves their goal, the whole company celebrates. I mean, that's somewhat unheard of where I'm from in the United States. But in Asia, if a whole company achieves, the whole company celebrates. So we need to make sure that we're looking at team versus individual, collectivism. That's certainly one component. The other is looking at what kind of rewards are motivating to people. So, looking at, for millennials, experiences are critical. In Asia, it's for both men and women. Cosmetic, skincare, very, very high esteemed rewards to be able to receive high-end cosmetics and skincare. When we work with global clients, they don't understand why we're offering this. Like, it's some of the most redeemed items in Asian culture. So it's really looking at, how do we, and it's different holidays, how do we have the moon cakes? How do we have the festival gifts included in our reward offering?
So you mentioned that, the customizing and the making it meaningful from the material part of it or the reward part of it, whether it's a thank you note or making it local. I'm intrigued to understand, how do you help organizations define the employee value proposition? Because when I look around and if I go to a company website vis-a-vis another company, they all look the same, and it's very challenging for us to let go and say, you know what, I'm going to stand for this. Because I know that then that means I'm letting go of a segment of population that might not be interested in joining me because I've been so, which is the Netflix example that, we work this way and nothing else. How powerful is to have an employee value proposition that is really sharply defined, which means you're letting go, but yet it means that you're also more clear.
Well, at the risk of offending marketing people out there, I think the reason when you go online and you look at the websites is
they're all the same.
The marketing teams, HR is really letting marketing dictate the employee value proposition. And the proposition that a company makes to its consumers, it's different. It's distinct from the proposition that we're making to employees. So the reason they all look the same is because people are just taking their corporate branding message and trying to make it fit for employees. And they're really two distinct things. So I think the first thing that companies need to do is they need to mine the data, external data, their own data, social media data. From that, look at correlations, find the keen insights, and from that, develop a very simple employee value proposition. And then from there, look at your branded communications. But how you convey it, it's quite distinct and quite different. So you'll want to involve your marketing team. I'm not saying don't involve them, but your marketing message should not be your EVP.
So your message for HR on that front?
I think the message for HR is bring in outsiders, bring in some consultants, bring in some Marcom, and don't necessarily bring in the Marcom agency that's doing your branding. Bring in. There are companies that specialize in business-to-business communication and employee and PR type communication. So bring in maybe a different agency.
So specialization is critical.
Right, specializes and HR community, go speak to colleagues of yours and see what they're doing. So learn from others within your industry, and don't be afraid of the data points you have. Take the data, look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and know that from that you're going to propel yourself forward.
Wonderful. So my last question, David, is crystal glazing in the future. What are the trends that you think are inevitable when it comes to rewards and recognition? I know it's a little difficult question, but because you are inside this segment and you can see so many things, and probably you've seen in the past trends that you felt were inevitable and they turned to be true facts. What are the one or two things that you think are inevitable? And if companies are not doing them today, they're just behind because there will not be a choice.
Sure.
All companies will have to do it, so the sooner you start,
Right.
the better it is.
I think the trend will be personalization.
Yeah.
So you look at M&M candies, Nike sneakers, a computer. You can build a computer exactly how you want it.
Yeah.
You can design a tennis shoe that looks like you and what you want it to look like. You can name the tennis shoe. M&M's, you can put your name, your wedding date. So I think, how do we leverage technology to make sure that our recognition systems are highly personal to me?
Yeah.
What I want to see, how I want to recognize, and what I want to receive. And that then translates into my rewards. I want my rewards to be very personal to what my desires are and what my motivators are. So I think companies such as mine need to continue to look at how do we leverage the technology to make sure that what we're doing is highly personalized to individual employees. I think that's the biggest trend.
Wonderful, wonderful. So if organizations haven't started thinking about that, then today's the day to start about how am I doing it.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. It was
Thank
wonderful speaking to you, and I think it was great learning for me personally, and I'm sure for all our readers and our viewers. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.